Welcome. It's Friday, and this is Seniors Matter. I'm Brenda Charles Edwards, the host of Seniors Matter. We're here every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on www.Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your South Seattle community radio station. You can also listen to us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, X, Twitter, and of course on the Rainier Avenue Radio App. We feature interviews with people that provide services or have valuable information for seniors, their families, and of course the community. Do you need financial documents notarized? Are you a person that needs documents read to you for clarity or completion? Call me, Brenda, at Black Orchid Notary 206-683-2636. Tell me where, I'll meet you there. Well, today my guest is Brianna Mercker. She's a young onset stage IV colorectal cancer survivor, and she was diagnosed in 2018 at the age of 38. She has a fantastic story to share with us today. Welcome to the show, Brianna. How are you?
Hi, Brenda. I'm well, thanks. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Well, I'm glad you could make it. We met a couple weeks ago at an event at Langston Hughes about breast cancer, with Bridget Hempstead put on, and also a friend of mine was honored as she's been going through breast cancer, and she's a survivor, but what's happening now, what a lot of people don't know, and you could probably talk about this too, is you may get a diagnosis that you're clear, but you're still going to suffer from side effects for maybe over a year before you're back to quote unquote normal. Is that right?
I would argue that you're forever changed by your diagnosis, and it's different for everyone and the treatment that you go through and the different cancers. But for me, my life has forever been changed, and the side effects from treatment are lifelong changes. And once you've been diagnosed, you are always a cancer survivor, even if you're given the all clear. And for many, like for colorectal cancer in particular, is what I'm familiar with. Even after a clear, they're careful to even say you're all clear or you're cancer free. The terminology is NED, or no evidence of disease. And for colorectal cancer, there's high chance and high probability, especially with a stage IV and advanced metastatic diagnosis like mine, for reoccurrence. And so you continue to have ongoing screening and monitoring at a regular cadence up to 5 years after you've finished treatment. So that's the case for colorectal. I'm not sure for other cancers, how they continue to monitor and screen people or have that surveillance.
So now that we've started talking about your journey, what was your indication you needed to go to the doctor and see if there was something wrong with you?
Yeah, so I was young and otherwise healthy. I was also a new mom. I have twin boys. They were 2 years old, just going on 3. And I had some of the typical symptoms, but they, are symptoms of a lot of things, like being a new mom. So
right.
I had fatigue. I was tired, but I didn't know any different. I was running around with 2 toddlers.
Right.
I had, it was easy for me to lose the pregnancy weight, but I was nursing 2 babies. Unexpected weight loss is also a symptom. And the biggest thing for me was a change in my regular bathroom habits and my bowel function, the caliber and consistency, and frequency of which I needed to use the restroom changed pretty significantly over the course of a couple of months. And I was experiencing pretty severe cramping and nausea on ongoing basis, like reoccurring.
Did you have bleeding?
I didn't.
Okay.
I had no bleeding, no visible bleeding, which is absolutely another symptom. So it was pretty surprising. You know, I shared with my doctor what I was experiencing, and I'm super grateful that she was supportive of investigating further, because a lot of young folks that are complaining about, you know, I kind of thought, oh, maybe it's like IBS or IBD or just digestive troubles or like changes in my hormones because I was a new mom. And but we did some testing, stool-based testing, and that did show evidence of blood. So that wasn't visible, but what's called a FIT test tests for blood, traces of blood in your stool, and that was positive. So that's what prompted me then to go see a gastroenterologist. And based on the testing and the symptoms, it was recommended that I get a colonoscopy. And again, I thought like cancer was the farthest from my mind.
Sure.
And once I had the scope and they told me coming out of that with my almost 3-year-old twins and my mother in the room as I'm coming to, yeah, you have a large mass in your rectum and it's quite definitively cancerous. We've taken a biopsy to confirm, but you know, we've seen enough of cases to know that that's what's happening. So
before you go on, had you had a colonoscopy before?
No, I was only 38, and the recommended screening age, this was in 2018, and the recommendations to begin screening for average folks used to be age 50. So there was no reason, and I hadn't been showing any like symptoms to warrant having a colonoscopy previously.
Right.
Now they've lowered the screening age in 2020, which a lot of people aren't super familiar with, just because I think it happened during COVID and lots of other things going on in the world. Yes. But the screening age has been lowered to 45, but I still wouldn't have been, eligible or recognized as someone that should get a routine screening because I was in my 30s. So.
Right. Right. So after they gave you the diagnosis, then what was the suggested next steps?
Yeah. So I had to get scans to determine whether or not the disease had spread elsewhere in my body. That did identify a small mass as well in my liver. So I was diagnosed right out the gate with stage 4 metastatic disease. And then it was just gathering a care team, identifying surgeon and an oncologist, checking and getting a couple different opinions of who I wanted to work with and who I felt would be the best, have my best interests and good bedside manner and all of those kinds of things, while feeling a sense of urgency to move on treatment. And I then set out for a year-long course of treatment, which included chemotherapy. I had biweekly, like every 2 weeks, chemo infusions, and I would leave the cancer center with a pump, an IV pump of chemo, and have chemo administered for 48 hours after already getting pumped up with all the cocktail of chemo. I did 12.
But wait a second. So yeah. When you left, so were you supposed to do this yourself? I mean, is it like something automated, or were you just taking your recipe, so to speak, to wherever you had to go?
Yeah. So every time I went for a chemo infusion, I would go into the cancer center. I would have lab work and testing done, meet with my oncologist, and then go to the infusion floor and be hooked up. I had a port surgery to have a port placed in my chest so that I could more easily access or have chemotherapy, IV chemotherapy, and administered. And then I would sit there for like 4 hours to get the various pre-meds to help with addressing nausea and any other side effects. And then also the like super potent cocktail combination, and get that while in clinic, and then be disconnected from that and have a pump that I would, like, just a little box that's on a timer, and it would administer chemo into my body through the port. And I walked around wearing it in a fanny pack for 2 days, and it was constantly administering chemo for 48 hours. And then I would go back into the clinic, and that would be disconnected. And I usually would get IV hydration too, to help with the side effects of dehydration that came from chemo. So that was just the chemo side. I also had radiation to the pelvis. That was every day for 25 days, going into the clinic and getting radiation targeted directly to my tumor site. And then I was taking oral chemo during that time to complement the treatment. My metastasis, as I think I mentioned, was in my liver. It was just a small spot, thankfully, but not something that could be reached easily surgically. So I had what's called a radiofrequency ablation process. So they basically like stuck a needle into my rib cage, and with ultrasound guidance, identified the spot and fried it out of me, also with radiation. And then that doesn't include the surgeries that I had as well to remove the primary tumor. That was a big surgery. And
how large was the tumor? I'm sorry. How large was the tumor? Did they tell you?
Yeah, at the diagnosis, in terms of the scans, it was basically golf ball size. And in my rectum, so not blocking everything totally, but very much so.
Right.
One of the symptoms that I was exhibiting, which, I speak very candidly and openly about bodily functions, and so I hope everybody's okay with that. I encourage everybody poops, it's a part of like our normal, and we just need to normalize and talk about it.
And know what normal is for you.
Right. Know what normal is for you, and what normal wasn't for me. And when I was meeting with the gastroenterologist, and they were asking me, like, is your stool, is it like really thin, like a pencil? And I was like, yeah, it is. And that's because of the narrowing from my tumor that was just causing a small exit point, if you will.
Right. Sure.
So, that is another symptom in terms of like the caliber. But anyways, I forget if there was something else. So I had surgery to remove the primary tumor. I had what's called a temporary ileostomy. So because they cut out and removed a portion of my digestive tract, and they needed to give it time to heal for putting it back together and having that surgical site. They rerouted my intestines to come through my abdominal wall, and I had what's called a stoma, and a different exit point for my stool. And I quite literally pooped in a bag for 4 months while the rest of my digestive tract healed and recovered from surgery. And then after 4 months of finishing all of the treatment, giving time for the surgery to heal, it was reversed and I was reconnected. I say my plumbing was reconnected.
Right.
And then was a big learning curve of, relearning and having lost a large portion of my rectum, which is known as your storage capacity and like holding tank, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of urgency and lots of trips to the bathroom and lots of revisiting my diet and what kinds of foods I could and couldn't tolerate that would be triggers for me. So that was a big part of the aftermath when we were talking a little bit about side effects from treatment. Another thing I'll share in terms of side effects, because I received chemotherapy and also the radiation to my pelvis, I went into medically induced menopause at a young age. And so all of the symptoms that come with that and was like exacerbated because it was prompted expeditiously. And so that's been a big adjustment for me in the years following treatment and trying to decide around hormone replacement therapy and if that's safe and to what degree and what works and trying different things and how important that can be in terms of health benefits and protectiveness in terms of like a younger person still needing estrogen in terms of bone health and like risk for osteoporosis, let alone all the other fun side effects like sleeplessness and hot flashes and changes in metabolism. And another kind of topic that I don't know, we don't really talk very openly about. Right. So I was pretty naive to what that would look like. So.
Wow.
I know. I'll just keep. I'm an open book, Brenda.
No, this is great. Believe me, because it's things that people don't hear.
Yeah.
They know people have cancer. They know they may lose their hair or whatever, but they don't know all that other stuff. Because I have, I've been a patient advocate for a cousin for 5 years, and and it was just. Amazing, because she would not remember things at the doctor's appointment. So I always had to take notes. And for those that don't know or have experienced this, if you have a situation going on, please don't go to the doctor by yourself. Have someone with you to help you remember things because you're not going to.
100%. It is so important to have someone there with you to remember the things, to ask the questions, to answer the questions, to help you remember and deal. And there's so many things going on. And it's confusing and it's complicated and it's scary. And
all of the above.
Is one of my number one recommendations for anyone that's faced with this kind of a diagnosis. That and everybody's journey is different too. There's not like a cookie cutter standard care treatment. It's different depending on what cancer it is, even then depending on what your diagnosis is, what your specific like genetic mutation of your cancer and what kind of cocktail they make for you and the side effects. Like typically you don't experience hair loss, a lot of hair thinning from the chemo for colorectal cancer. So, visibly I looked pretty much the same, a little gaunt, but people would never know what I was going through. And that's another big takeaway that I try to just keep in mind and encourage people to be cognizant of. You just never know what people are going through and you never know what's going on behind the scenes. And the fact that I can't remember someone's name that I met a week ago I can blame it on like chemo brain and
that's right. That's the standard answer.
Like so many excuses. And I just put it out there. Like that's just the reality.
I told that to someone the other day because we were talking about another person. And I said, well, they're back in chemo. And so I said, so let's give them grace. because they're having chemo brain, and they just have to have a little grace.
Grace and grit. So my motto through treatment and following has been grit and grace, and like just having the like wherewithal and like determination to just stick through it and try to stay positive. And I think that's good medicine as well. And then also grace for yourself, your body, everything that you're going through. And yes, grace is very important.
I looked at the video of you because you started. You have a beautiful looking family. I'll tell you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, they're cool.
I think they're pretty cool too.
Yeah, I can understand that. Obviously they're supporting you, but talk a little bit about the walk and the other. What was the name of it? The other event that you did when you first found out about it and decided you founded one here in Seattle.
Yeah. So I was kind of like head down when I went through treatment that year. Really was just focused on getting the medical care and attention to try and get rid of the disease, and focused on my family and leaning into them for support, which I was very fortunate to have great support. Especially with the young kids. Mm-hmm. And then after finishing treatment was when I was really becoming motivated to like raise awareness, let people know that this is impacting young people, unsuspecting people, otherwise healthy with no family history of cancer, let alone colorectal cancer, active and like good lifestyle, just totally shocking diagnosis out of the blue. And people weren't talking about it. And so I found at that time the Colorectal Cancer Alliance, and I've gotten really involved as a volunteer. It's a national nonprofit organization. They had a walk, a fundraising and community building walk in Portland, Oregon, and that was the closest that I could find to me here in Seattle. So I packed up my family and we went to participate in that walk. I formed a team and I rallied my community. I got like very public with my story and started sharing it more broadly, just trying to encourage awareness and also some fundraising for resources to support other patients and families going through this kind of journey, and had a great experience there and thought, hey, we need to be doing something like this in Seattle. And so I volunteered on the walk planning committee in Portland and kind of learned the ropes. Then COVID happened and we did a couple events virtually, but that was also a really great opportunity for me to test my community and do some virtual organizing, and like had a gathering of friends and family go to Green Lake and do our own kind of walk and wear signs and wear blue and raise awareness that way. And then worked with the Alliance to launch the first Walk to End Colon Cancer in Seattle in 2022, so 2 years ago. And Seattle was ready for it. We kind of hit it out of the park. I love that we do the event at Gasworks Park. I think it's just like, it's an iconic location for the city and the view, but also just the name of the park is so appropriate.
Yes, that is true.
And yeah, we've had a really fantastic turnout. And I'm like just super motivated to build community around the disease and connect with other patients that are faced with it, because it can feel very like isolating. A lot of people choose to stay private and are embarrassed about it, and just trying to like welcome everyone with open arms and encourage people to start talking more openly and reject the stigmas surrounding the disease and talking about poop and butts and guts and all that good stuff. So we're planning our third annual event. It'll be in October 5th, back at Gasworks. And I'll also share that today is a special day. It's and this month is a special month because March is known as Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm.
Today is known as Dress in Blue Day. Blue is the color of colorectal cancer. I'm wearing my blue, and there's lots of like awareness campaigns and bringing it up and making sure that people know about the screening age and that they know about symptoms to be on the lookout for and all that good stuff. So this evening, I've actually organized together with some other survivors gathering for the survivor community, specifically for colorectal cancer. So I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of people in person and helping them make connections with one another so that we're not feeling so alone in this journey, and especially other folks that are young and, typically when I was diagnosed, I thought, this is like an old man's disease. This isn't affecting young people. Mm-hmm. And, there's unfortunately a new face to the disease. And statistically, we know now that not only is it the number one cancer killer for men under age 50, and the number two cancer killer for women, it's predicted to be the number one cancer killer for people aged 29 to 40 by 2030. So the demographic is shifting a lot. And unfortunately, many of those young people, because symptoms don't often present, like in my case, I was only seeing symptoms pretty like mildly, but with an advanced diagnosis and the disease had already been, they say that colorectal cancer typically is a pretty slow growing disease. So it was probably manifesting in my body for like 10 years, they estimate. Wow. And so, I was diagnosed at 38. That means I should have been screened in my late 20s. Now my kids, because of my diagnosis, the recommendation is if you have a family member that has been diagnosed, your immediate family should begin screening 10 years prior to that time. So that's an important thing to know and to talk about, is recognizing and knowing your family history. Even though I didn't have any, there are people that do have colorectal cancer in their family, and sharing that with their loved ones and making sure that they know that they should begin screening at an earlier age than the typical recommendations is really important as well.
Right. Thank you, my dear. Thank you. My time is just about up. And I just wanted to say, I know, it went by fast.
I just keep talking. I didn't even give you chances to ask questions, but we hit on all the big stuff.
That's okay. I mean, you were perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Well, you'll have to come back if you would, please.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Well, and hopefully you'll have some other survivors.
I am going to.
Yeah, and I will share, if you don't mind, just resources for more information if people are faced with this diagnosis or if they're looking for more information about screening. There's a great screening quiz offered by the Colorectal Cancer Alliance, and their website is just colorectalcancer.org. So you can find the screening quiz there, and it asks you a couple questions and then makes a recommendation around when you should get screened, how you should get screened. And then if you're in the unfortunate situation where you have this diagnosis or you have a caregiver that's looking for ways to support you, there's lots of resources on their website there as well.
Great. I got to go. They told me time's up. Okay. Thank you. We'll talk soon. Thank you to my listening audience. I love you guys. Have a great weekend. Be safe. Live your life like it's golden. Go high school ballers. It's your weekend.